Thank you, committee. We move on to the public report 4.2 Newton Grange Primary School Playground Upgrade. Report by Chief Officer Corporate Solutions. Ms Corr, please.
Thank you, Chair. So members of the committee are asked to consider the petition that has been submitted by Newton Grange Primary School Parent Council, which doesn't roll off my tongue very quickly, that was submitted on the 6th of February 2025. So the petition is attached as Appendix B in the report for you. As Alan said earlier, in the chamber today we have two members from the Parent Council that are here to speak to you about the petition. So those are Julia Gossip and Ben Miller. So we'll shortly hand over to both of them, who have a short presentation and up to 10 minutes to speak and present to Petitions Committee, and then the opportunity for Petitions Committee to ask questions of them. There is also a hard copy of the presentation that has been issued out to elected members as well for ease, and we'll share that up on the screen. In terms of Petitions Committee decisions, it's not an easy thing to say. Petitions Committee are asked to consider the content of the petition and the information that is provided in the chamber today, and then determine what action should be taken. And the options presented to you are no action, or you can pass the petition to the relevant director or other council committee to look into with or without any specific recommendations. So I'm now going to hand over to Julia and Ben to do their presentation.
Thank you. I should have said very warm welcome to you both, and to use sorry, excuse me, to use the microphones if you just press it and that leaves it on. And so over to you. Thank you.
Okay. Good morning everyone. Thank you for attending this morning to listen to our presentation. As we've been introduced, I'm Julia, this is Ben, and we are representing the Newton Grange Primary School Parent Council this morning. And we would like to talk to you about our petition to upgrade the Newton Grange Primary School playground. Next slide, please. So our petition, what's it all about? Well, in November this year, Newton Grange Primary School will be 100 years old, and we're very much looking forward to celebrating that milestone. And there's no doubt about it that our school has some fantastic teachers and staff working with us who are dedicated and passionate to our children's education. But the facilities in that time have deteriorated, and we feel that they no longer meet the standards and needs expected of a modern school. The playground is essentially a hard, square tarmac surface, which is not stimulating, engaging or fun for any of the children, staff and our after-school club who use it all year round. Parents are constantly raising concerns about the safety of the playground and the condition of it. The hard tarmac causes children to fall and hurt themselves, and this also is a barrier to safe play. For example, we have a lot of children in our school who love to play football, but without any softer surfaces, this inevitably leads to injuries. The railings that surround the playground are a hazard with rusty fragments and flaking paint. We feel that there is no play in our playground. There is a disparity between us and some other local Midlothian schools. When you look around at other schools, they have lots of engaging features, play zones, different surfaces, access to nature and trim trails to enhance outdoor education and play. Ours lacks even basic facilities like shelter or even simple play structures. In fact, it's our understanding that Newton Grange Primary is the only primary school in the Midlothian district without any formal play structures at all. We believe that Midlothian school children should have equality in the educational facility provision to them, and are asking now for this to be rectified. We feel that our children deserve a better playground to play and learn in. And with this in mind, we launched our petition asking for Midlothian Council to take action, and so far we have 463 signatures.
Next slide, please. Morning, everyone. So just to bring this to life a bit, there's some photos here taken last winter, and you can see our P1 to 3 space, and this is obviously the first space that the children come into. There's a really great ELC space next door that has a great garden. Other children, some come from Vogrie, which is another great Midlothian early learning facility, but then in terms of transition, it's not a welcoming and great space. And despite efforts by parents to improve and add colour, and there's flower pots and various other things we've been able to buy with some of the environment funds that Councillor Drummond committed, overall the space needs something more than small improvements. It probably needs a wider set of enhancements. And then going across to the P4 to 7 space, again, that's it's just a clear concrete space. Some of the older children are able to go out in the park, but that's limited to the P6s and 7s really, because of the fencing and the public access to the park. And as Julia mentioned, the railings there as well, which just contributes a feeling of rundownness and the overall environment of the school feeling a bit tired. There is a small AstroTurf area within the park as well, but we'd really like to see that maybe moved inside to another bit of the playground that's available for that. So as we've acknowledged that there have been some positive moves. We've had a bit of funding for some benches, which have made a big improvement. And the council also, the roads department came and resurfaced the tarmac last year, which was also a brilliant step forward. But now we see it as sort of a blank canvas that we really want to build on top of. Then we can go to the next slide, please. I suppose this is what we're contrasting with, and which is absolutely brilliant for all these schools. We've got the new schools at places like Burnbrae and East Houses, with tens of millions spent on new facilities, but even some of the older schools, which probably also in need of some investment. There's a bit of shelter. There's the Kings Park in the middle there, and climbing structures. But at the other end, the new schools, which have these amazing mazes and trim trails, you can understand why, as a parent, you'd want your child to have access to more of that in their school. And also to make the point that this seems like really good value for money. These spaces are being used by hundreds of children every day through term time and through clubs in the holidays as well. So we just wanted to focus on the disparity really between some of these different schools.
Okay, so we thought we'd have a look at some of the regulations around playgrounds. The general regulations in 1967. We are aware that this is currently under review by the Scottish Government just now, and I think they're in consultation to update these regulations. But as we stand today, I believe these are the current enforced regulations. So what do they say? Well, they say really that every primary school should have a playing field according to the size of the number of pupils attending their school. And according to the chart in the Act, Newton Grange Primary School should have really access to 1 acre or 4,064 square metres. As our playground is approximately 2,100 square metres, we would say that our playground is probably too small for the number of children attending our school. In addition, it does state that outside areas should be surfaced appropriately for educational and recreational activities. And we would argue also that our playground outdoor space is not suitably surfaced for recreational activities. That's what the main regulations say, and we wanted to look a bit more about the Midlothian specific information. So what we know is that a Learning Estate Strategy in 2022 conducted a survey to look at the condition, suitability and sufficiency of all the Midlothian primary schools. As you can see from the results at the side there, Newton Grange scored very poorly in these areas. The grading for the suitability category included factors like the external social facilities, external facilities and environmental conditions. And one of the factors that gave them a C grade rating was it's found to have major suitability problems and lack of not performing optimally. We know that the General Services Capital Plan did highlight, that was published in 2023, did highlight a plan that stated that Newton Grange should have a complete upgrade and refurbishment of their facilities, and it seemed to indicate that money had been earmarked in the 2023 to 2027 tax years to make some changes. As the Newton Grange Primary School Council, we would love to see this refurbishment of the school, including the playground, start soon. Next slide, please. So, just spoken about where we are, moving on now really to talk about the current playground provisions, what they should look like, what a good playground would look like. And I'm going to talk briefly about two documents published by the Department for Education called the Area Guidelines for Mainstream Schools and the Advice and Standards for School Premises for Local Authorities. Now, I do obviously acknowledge that these are English documents and are not in Scotland. However, they are very good documents and they do still influence current policy in this area in Scotland as well. And they basically talk about what would happen to a playground should a playground be introduced now, or if a playground was going to be renovated now. And they talk about a set of ratios of the surface types that a playground should have by the number of children attending. And a school, Newton Grange size, should really have access to both hard, soft and habitat surfaces. I've included a graph in the appendix to the presentation showing how these surfaces break down and how the graph would translate into Newton Grange Primary School ratios. The second document talks really about the fact that some schools will be on restricted sites and do not have enough outdoor space to meet the requirements on site. And in these situations, pupils should be provided with access to suitable off-site provision. And I thought this was an interesting point for Newton Grange, and one that we'll come back to a little bit later. Ben will come back to. The Learning Through Landscapes charity is a UK leading charity that works to enhance outdoor learning and play for children. They do campaign to influence government policy in this area. They have some really useful, interesting and resources on this. I've included a statement that they have, or their position statement, as I feel it kind of sums up how we as a parent council feel about our playground, and that is that school grounds are a vital daily unifying feature for every child in Scotland, regardless of the privileges or challenges that they face, and that school grounds have the potential to significantly enhance children's physical health and mental well-being. And I think there are obviously countless of evidence-based research now to show that outdoor learning and play has a massively beneficial impact on children's outcomes and on their happiness. And with Newton Grange falling into the Scottish Government's Scottish Index for Multiple Motivation, shouldn't we all be doing what we can to support this? The maintenance of school grounds are the outcome of geography, history and socio-economics. That is true, but 100 years, we wonder, should Newton Grange Primary be fall into the postcode lottery forever? We feel that the children of Newton Grange Primary should have equitable play experiences to those born in Bonnyrigg, Gorebridge and Dalkeith, and with better planning and some commitment, something better can be achieved for Newton Grange. So that quality time in school grounds should be a daily experience for all of our school children in Scotland without prejudice. With this in mind, though, and everything I've said about space and softer surfaces, we as a parent council think we might have come up with a solution, which Ben is going to talk to you about now.
Yep, thank you. So some of the conversations we've had with Councillor Scott have been really productive on this solution. And this is really a solution to the space issue more than anything, and we've identified a bit of the park that's largely a kind of dead space at the moment to the side of the ELC. Because the park is a Fields and Trust and it would need, it couldn't be transferred to the school as far as we understand it, but with some fencing that had a kind of dual use, a dual mandate, so that it could be open to the public outside of school hours, and we think that we could extend the playground space available to the whole school, not just to the P7s. So that's something that we would be keen to take forward as soon as possible, and that could then have equipment perhaps put in this space as well, we'd hope, and make it a kind of a multi-use space. So that, as we've walked around the site with both some Councillor Scott and the Development Trust as well, and they were supportive of this. Another side to this proposal would be looking at what play structures could be implemented in the existing playground, and one of your officers, Gary Cormack, he costed up some proposals and came and did the measurements last year, and believed that those had been put forward to the sort of budget process, but not sure where those got to. But I've got a sheet which I'll circulate afterwards, looking at some kind of trim trail kind of ideas for the different spaces in the playground, and they were costed up between sort of 10 and 20,000 for the different things, which we feel like it's an achievable cost together with this. So we think this is what we'd like to pursue, especially this year leading up to the 100-year anniversary, because and having some kind of assurance that would go ahead would really be something we can all point to in the autumn. Just go to the next slide, please. So thanks for listening. As we've set out our case, we don't think it's fit for purpose at the moment. We're sure we're not the only primary school that this applies to, and others would have ambitions as well. So we really think that we could broaden this out a bit to look at the learning estate that is older and how relatively small amounts of investment compared to the new builds could really bring those up to a good standard. So in summary, we'd like to increase the space. We'd like to introduce some more softer surfaces and having a variety of surfaces. There's no shelter at the moment. Some forms of shelter would really help through the winter months, and really building on the kind of outdoor play strategy, which I think you've probably signed up to, and some of the good work that's going on in early learning and bringing that into the primary school environment as well. It's worth saying in the end there, we've been trying to take the initiative. The school has been in discussions with the community payback team, who've been talking about perhaps doing the painting the school railings as a project there. We've also raised some money as the parent council, but what we can raise is in the hundreds, so we can buy equipment and things like benches and play items for the playground, chalking structures and things like that. But we need to go to the next level. It needs to go from hundreds to thousands, but we think that is not an unfair ask in the overall context of what's going on with the learning estate. Anything else? So thank you. I look forward to hearing your questions and discussion.
Ben, if you can just pop your microphone. That's lovely. Thank you very much, Julia and Ben. Councillors, any questions? Councillor Curran.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks for the presentation. It's really helpful. Just a question for officers. Is there anything in the capital plan that we recently agreed that would include any upgrades or refurbishments in Newton Grange Primary School?
Mr Anderson.
Thanks, Chair. Certainly, Councillor Curran, there is provision within the capital plan. The most recent capital plan, which came to last council, did indicate that there's work ongoing in respect to all the school conditions, and indeed the petitioners have reflected some of that in their presentation. The intention is that we bring our schools that are condition C up to condition B, both in terms of condition and suitability of each of those premises. There is, at the moment, work that's ongoing for a range of work packages based on that report that was approved last at Council. We intend to report back sometime after May. We're expecting conclusion of that work by May, so potentially June Council that this would return back here. That does include exterior works to those schools which are ranked C at the moment, which does include Newton Grange. There has been work again, as has been reflected, with our Green Space team here, who are currently investigating the prospect of our annual allocation in terms of play equipment and playgrounds, but also from our planning colleagues in terms of potential available developer contributions, which might help assist in this particular ask and project, Chair. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr Anderson. Councillor Curran, do you want to come back in?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Just by way of information, and I'm not sure I agree or disagree with the reference to postcode lottery, but just to give some context, so I represent Danderhall and Dalkeith, and Danderhall Primary School was recently, it was a new community hub that was built there about 4 years ago, and I think almost over 40% of the cost of that came from developer contributions, because it's such a fast-growing area, Danderhall. And I think most places where we're seeing, like Pennycook, Lasfield High School a few years ago, New Battle, we're seeing population growth, and much of the funds that are allocated towards the schools and facilities come from developer contributions. So just to provide some context on that.
Thank you, Councillor Curran. Councillor Smale and then Councillor McManus, please.
Thank you, Provost. I very much welcome this petition. I think there will be developer contributions available because of the construction of the houses on the old New Battle High School site, which partly is in my ward east, but partly in south. So I'd encourage that. I think Kevin Anderson meant to say yes, but it took a little while to get there. Looking at parallel initiatives at East Houses, using environmental funds, we created a new pathway which can be constituted as what I call the St Ninian's Mile, so that children can have exercise there, obviously supervised by a teacher. And we know from that experience in Stirlingshire that exercise hugely increases concentration of children in the afternoon and is a very positive thing. So this strange delineation between Newton Grange School and the park, I think, has to come away. Going back a few years, there was consideration, you will not be surprised to know, about all the parking problems of Newton Grange School. And one of the solutions suggested by then Councillor Munro was there could be, adjacent to the main street, a gathering area where there could be what we call a walking bus, taking people actually through the park into Newton Grange School. Now, I know that's not explicitly part of this proposal, but I would welcome your comments as to whether that could be looked into as a way of alleviating the problem you have with parking and giving a healthy small walk in the morning to access the school through the territory you've been discussing.
Julia, Ben, would you feel like to come back on Councillor Smale's suggestion of a parking area and walk to school?
I think that's probably separate, but it is an ongoing problem because of the nature of the streets around the school. The teachers got their car park resurfaced around the front of the school, but I think there's still, there's a lot of challenges with Newton Grange town centre in that area around the library and the old pool site that are probably all interlinked to the feel of that town centre, but that's probably for another day. Just to pick up on Councillor Curran's point about the developer contributions, there's an awful lot of housing, potentially 1,000 houses proposed between Newton Grange and Mayfield, at the sort of Stob Hill Road area. Is that, I don't know where that's got to in the planning process, but those contributions, have they already been allocated? Are they allocated up front, or are they put into a pot? How would someone access those?
I'm going to refer to Mr Anderson to answer that question, Ben.
Thanks, Chair. I don't have the details of the specifics, but indeed as part of the developer contributions, once those go through Council by members in their other capacity, there's usually provision not just for education, but also in terms of community facilities. Play is also part of those considerations, and that's what our planning colleagues are looking at from the request that we've had from respective elected members involved in your case to date as to what will be eligible for that. Whilst I've got the mic, just a reference, Chair, in terms of the Fields and Trust, that is a wholly separate process, which I know Green Space colleagues are exploring and looking to undertake at the moment. There are some separate conditions which that public body requires when there's any alteration or disposal of land in terms of compensation for that may be considered to be lost. But again, we're just in the midst of dealing with that, and we'll feed back to you in due course of any additional conditions that they may have. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr Anderson. You happy with that, Councillor Smale? Don't want to come back. Councillor McManus, please.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for bringing your petition to us all. Obviously, as a ward member for Pennycook, I've not been in Newton Grange Primary School, so to see the photos that you've brought and the contrast between other schools, I certainly know from Pennycook's perspective that our primary schools do have play areas, and it doesn't really seem to be a concern in my ward at the moment, and I would hate for it to be. So my question is to Kevin Anderson about the incorporation of the park. That seems something that's quite simple in practice. Obviously, there is some paperwork that would need to happen behind that, but how quickly could that happen if they were to incorporate the park into the playground?
Mr Anderson, nice easy question for you.
Thank you, Chair. Our dealings with Fields and Trust do tend to be a bit protracted, so I would suggest it be a matter of months as opposed to weeks, because it's been the similar process in other locations and projects, Chair.
Thank you.
Sorry, could I just say on that as well, just to clarify that the school position on that, we are not suggesting that we incorporate the park solely for the use of Newton Grange Primary School. What we are suggesting is a dual-use facility, much like the Petonk area in Newton Grange has, where they have an area that they can use, but also the public can use. What we would be suggesting is a sort of double fence approach, where you have a fence between the school and also a fence between the rest of the children's area, whereby it could be for the use of the school children during school hours or break time hours even. But then the areas of the public could in fact still have access to that outside of the times that the school children were using it. Thank you.
Thank you, Julia. Mr Anderson.
Yeah, just to confirm, we understand that position and we'll give that clarity. I just can't preempt what the decision will be. I think that might be more favourable in terms of the application as opposed to full disposal or withdrawal as they may see it from public use. But we are aware of that to give that clarity to the Fields and Trust.
So I suppose going back to Councillor McManus's point, it's a slightly trickier situation than if we, the council, owned that part. Because again, I like Councillor McManus at Pennycook. Yes, I know Newton Grange, but I wasn't aware of the nuances of who owned the park. I had assumed it was the council until I was reading the paper. So it does make it slightly trickier, but not out with the realms of possibility. Councillor Curran.
Thanks, Chair. Final point for me. I just meant to say, actually, I can relate to the asphalt and the tarmac surfaces in Danderall when I went to primary school a long time ago. Many a day I went home with bruises and grazes, and actually not only that, but holes in trouser knees and jumpers and stuff. So it does have an effect. The point I was going to raise is last week the Scottish Government launched a £25 million initiative for play park renewal. I'm not sure if that is only for just public play parks. I'm not sure if that would relate to anything within the schools, but as an action point, could we take that away and look at that?
Yeah, Councillor Curran, my understanding of it was that it was for play parks within communities, but I'm going to defer to Mr Anderson on that one.
Thanks, Chair. Certainly our annual allocation follows that remit, which is in terms of making sure it has public access. And again, that's where the double fencing position might give us a bit more latitude here in terms of eligibility, not just in terms of fields and trusts, but also the Scottish Government allocation. So the short answer is we don't know yet, and we'll bring that back and give you further clarity. Thanks.
Okay, councillors, I think that's it. Do we have a motion? Councillor McManus.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to propose to uphold the asks of the petition, not that we have the power to do so, but to refer it to Place and Education to explore the possibilities of extending the school area into the park for a dual-use purpose and explore some routes for funding to increase the play equipment and the surfaces within the playground, and to report back at Council.
Thank you for that. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Smale?
Seconded.
Happy to do that. Mr Trippian, in terms of governance, is that suitable? Do we need to do anything else?
No, Chair, that's perfectly acceptable. The petition has been passed to the two directors with recommendations from Councillor.
Yeah, congratulations. I hope you feel you've been heard, and as someone who attended a primary school in Edinburgh, which was smaller than Newton Grange, and only and this is something I'll give Michelle a heart attack for suggesting things like this, but our playground was so small we got extra swimming lessons at the Commonwealth pool to make up for it. I'll tell you, it's Preston Street Primary, and because it was so, if you were to build a new school with that population, it would need to be 8 times the size of what the, and we did legitimately. That is how I can swim, because we got extra swimming lessons. I'm not about to suggest that to education, that your children get extra swimming lessons in the meantime, but I'm hopeful that this will be able. It seems to be a very obvious proposal, the legalities not withstanding, and I look forward to joining you in your birthday celebrations in November, and let's hope that we have things done and dusted by then. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Just to maybe push our luck a little bit, but the last point on the petition about maybe having some paint for our railings, is that a possibility also?
Yeah, let's just yeah, we are happy to include that in what we've said, the paint for the railings. If that's going to be a huge possibility, if it's a huge problem for the council budget, I'm sure we could. One of the local councillors could agree to put it in their environmental budget. The Deputy Provost is nodding. Okay, thank you everyone for your attendance today.